All right. What's up, everybody? We are live here on the Falcons Podcast with Garrett Chapman. I'm going to add in our friends over there on Facebook and on Twitter, and then we are going to be underway. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Got some folks already starting to jump in. And we are live on all platforms. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. Very excited to be jumping in here on the Falcons Podcast. It is a Thursday, year of our Lord 2026, January 29th. General manager search maybe coming to an end here in the very near future. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Maybe we'll get an announcement during the podcast. I don't know, but we'll talk about that here on the show this evening. If you're joining us live, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're not, make sure to tune in next time, every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. We like to dig into all of our Falcon stuff here and try to take your comments, your questions as much as you can, as much as I can, as much as my voice can handle on any random evening, I guess you could say. And we just have a good time. And I'm thrilled for all of you guys to be joining here this evening. But if you're joining us later, well, make sure to tune in after the fact coming in. But either way, regardless, thank you so much for jumping in here on the podcast. Give me a follow at GChapATL on Twitter. Stay fully up to date on everything that we have going on here on Falcons on SI. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to share it with your friends. I know this is a growing platform. We're trying to talk as many people as we can and try to spread the word here on some Falcons football, just because we're trying to catch them on the upswing. That's what we're doing right now. And we're just going to keep on talking, keep on chatting. But we got a big show set up for you. The biggest thing, of course, what does Michael Penix's rehab update, what does it mean for the Atlanta Falcons moving forward into this offseason? And then we're going to talk a little bit about where everything stands on the general manager search. But as always, super chats, those are the best way to support the channel, to support everything that we have going on here with Falcons on SI. And make sure to drop it in there. But if you have any comments, any questions, anything else like that, I'm also more than happy to get to that. But let's dive into some of the content that we have here scheduled for you on the show. And the biggest thing, of course, is Michael Penix's rehab schedule. This all comes from Zach Klein, WSB TV. He's the sports director over there, does a lot of great stuff, a very good job, right? And according to him, in a conversation that he had with quarterback Michael Penix, he could be ready by week 1. That's huge. That's a really, really big deal for the Atlanta Falcons moving forward. And it for a lot of different reasons. First and foremost, it's good for Michael as he continues to ramp back up and kind of see what he's able to do and, adjust to this brand new Kevin Stefanski offense. But I mean, just in general, it's important for the Falcons because they can actually see what they can get from him. Maybe that means that he'll be ready to go by week 1. Maybe that means he's going to be, suiting up and playing football in week 1. That's the hope, I guess you could say. But ultimately, if you can get him back during training camp at some point where, obviously he's not going to be taking any hits or anything like that. And if you saw the video, then you would be, they kind of discussed everything in terms of what those expectations are. It was a question from Zach. He said, what are you most looking for? What are you most nervous about? Is getting hit or wondering if you can get hit and get back up? And that's kind of what led to the comment saying, I'm expecting to be ready by week 1. And that tells me that hopefully he could be back by training camp, because obviously he's not going to play in the preseason. There's just no chance that's going to happen. As of right now, of course, things can change. But we never had a public recovery timetable, and looking back at some of his previous injuries and just in general what an ACL is going to take, and you don't want to rush it, but just kind of seeing the way all of this generally takes place, that kind of put him around what we were thinking, but that could have been a return date at about 9 months, so that could have been the beginning of September. And that's when he starts his ramp up. That's when he gets into the offense and starts throwing the ball and taking some first team reps and stuff like that. That would mean that you're going to have to invest in a different quarterback. That means that you're going to have to dig in a little bit deeper, make a bigger investment, maybe send some draft capital, do stuff like that. That is not necessarily going to be the case anymore. All we know for sure is that he got injured in week 11 against the Carolina Panthers. He had his second opinion the next week in week 12. And then by, I believe, the 24th or sometime around then, he had a surgery. By the time Christmas rolled around, we had Raheem Morris telling us that he was back with the team. He was rehabbing in the facility and in the building and in good spirits. That's really about all we know. And then, of course, Arthur Blank had his comments. I mean, Kevin Stefanski talked a lot about his comments, or we talked about his comments on Michael Penix on Tuesday. But there was no public timetable. We didn't really know. We've kind of speculated, and we've kind of just gone along with that, just because in the absence of a lot of information, one of the consistent things that I see happen in the media is people just sort of pick up a narrative and then they just sort of stick with it, and then it becomes truth, and that truth is that Michael Penix was potentially going to miss a couple of weeks of the season. That's kind of the way people were trending. And then now that we have this update, it kind of tells us something different. It paints a different scenario. And with the new head coach, with the new offensive coordinator, potentially with several new weapons, you're going to want to see him build some chemistry. And that doesn't mean that he needs to be up and running around and cutting and getting hit and everything like that. But I do like the idea of him being able to drop back, throw a couple of passes in training camp, and maybe run the offense a bit. Maybe not the 2-minute, maybe not anything like that. Maybe he's not doing a lot of cutting and running and stuff like that, but he'll be back in squatting and stuff in the late spring, and he'll probably be doing his ramp up in July, and then hopefully he'll be ready to go. That's the hope, right? That's the hope. And if he is able to go in week 1, all systems go. All systems go. And that changes the outlook of what the Falcons could potentially be in 2026. Because if you're going and sending out draft capital for a Mac Jones or a Jacoby Brissett or something like that, that tells me that you're readying up to actually have a different starting quarterback for at least a couple of weeks. And Michael, he did show us some progress. He showed us some potential. He struggled a bit, but that's to be expected. 60% completion percentage is not awesome. You need to see that go a little bit higher. He was 3-6 as a starter. You got to see him do a little bit better there. 220 yards per game. It's okay. 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. It's not, those aren't earth-shattering numbers, right? But at the same time, this is a group who, I've started looking back at some of his tape and watching some of these Falcons games, and a lot of them have not been, it's not been great, right? The consistent thing that I've been seeing is that the growing pains are very present, but he does have the stuff to be a franchise quarterback. You need to get him some wide receiver, some depth at the wide receiver position. Casey Washington was supposed to be one of those guys. Ray McLeod was supposed to be one of those guys. Darnell Mooney was supposed to be one of those guys. One was a healthy scratch. One got cut. One got hurt. Right. And then you have Kyle Pitts, who's 2 up and 2 down. And the thing that I've seen a lot is that if you have him dropping back, he hits the backdrop, or he hits his back step, right? And his 3-step drop, and nobody's open. And then he hesitates. And instead of stepping up in the pocket, you start seeing him drift a little bit. And that leads him to feeling some pressure. And sometimes it would lead to a bad throw, right? Sometimes he gets sacked. Sometimes he tries to scramble it out and it doesn't work out too well because he is a little too robotic in the pocket. And he has shown a little bit of a reluctancy to run. But again, a lot of those things can be helped with coaching. And I think Kevin Stefanski coming in and working his magic here and seeing what he can do. He doesn't have a great track record, but I do believe him in the sense that he is a guy to develop Michael Penix. If you can see some of that development, see him continue to take a couple of extra steps, then Penix can absolutely be a franchise quarterback. He has the potential to do that. He just needs to realize some of that potential. And ultimately, that's what 2026 is going to rely on. Because you can invest in a lot of great players. You can go get some, you can make a big investment and all this other stuff. But the thing is, if you don't have the quarterback position right in this league, then you're not going to be doing all that much. But this is the year to figure that out, because you have to make a decision on a 5th-year extension or a 5th-year option. Are you going to pick that up after this year or not? I don't see this team going off and they're not competing for a Super Bowl. They're not going to do it. Vrabel did in his first year with what the Patriots are doing and all this other stuff. That's just not happening. I don't see that in their cards. Can you make a playoff run? Maybe. But the thing that I need this team to answer this year is if Michael Penix can be the guy. He showed flashes, but he trended the wrong direction. He trended the wrong direction far too often. But again, that's just a young quarterback taking his lumps. Now I want to see what he does with a more established, seasoned coach in Kevin Stefanski. And if it still doesn't come together, then it's time to move on. Then it's time to move on. But the fact that this injury update, this rehab update, changes the timeline, and that gives me a little bit more confidence that he could potentially be the guy moving forward, at least into 2026. And as far as what the plan is for the Falcons this offseason, you could potentially go for an older, more veteran option. Go get a Joe Flacco, something like that. Maybe go get a young, exciting guy, maybe a flame out, maybe like a Zach Wilson or something like that. Somebody who is not necessarily going to generate a ton of interest on the free agency market, but could potentially come in and push Michael Penix should he need to. And Joe Flacco, of course, he's not going to push him, but he's going to present a high floor option behind him. And I'd say a veteran would also come in and help Mike develop alongside of Kevin Stefanski, somebody who said he is a, quote, maniac for development, because Kirk Cousins is not going to be the quarterback here. I mean, that's been pretty clear. He's going to get cut. He restructured his contract. Everything's just the writing's on the wall for Kirk. So you're going to have to bring in at least one other guy. I'd imagine you bring in two. I'm not even talking camp bodies. I'm talking about another bona fide quarterback who's going to be on this roster. I'd imagine that you're going to have three quarterbacks. That just seems like the most logical play here for the Falcons moving forward, but I am excited about the potential. I see the chance, because I see the chance for him to be a franchise quarterback, because you have the accuracy issues. And if that can be ironed out, then he's got the chops, man. Because when he's in rhythm and he gets the protection that he needs, the guy can make every single throw on the field. He's got incredible arm talent and he's got potential. It's just, he's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay healthy. If he cannot stay healthy, then it's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough. All right. I'm going to jump into some of your comments. I see some people have started flowing those in. Ooh, lots of conversation going. I see we have a Cowboys fan. We've got a Seahawks fan. They want revenge. No, I don't care about the Seahawks, man. Who cares about the Falcons? This is the Falcons podcast. I care about the Falcons. Barco 11. So pleasure to you, my friend. Jeremy comes in and says Penix is not that good, man. Based off of what? He's got a tiny sample size. He showed unbelievable potential at times. He showed growing pains at others, right? He says he can't line up under center. Is that him or was that coaching? You can't answer that. No one can answer that because we don't know. So you have no idea, just like most people don't have any idea. The just coming out and saying that he's not a good quarterback based off of a tiny sample size, it's foolish. It's foolish, and I'm not going to do it. All right, I got a super chat here. I'm going to jump right into this. ATL Jet Jones says, "What's up, GChap ATL? Who are some quarterbacks we could add?" I threw out a couple names. I put out a big list of quarterbacks that the Falcons could potentially look into. And this update changes that just a little bit because I don't see them going. Tyrod Taylor's one. I don't see them putting assets out and throwing a lot of money at this position. I see a veteran. That's something that I think would make a lot of sense, right? If it is a Joe Flacco, if it is a Tyrod Taylor, if it is a guy who's just a little bit older, who's entering the free agency market, I think that's what makes the most sense for the Falcons right now, because you want somebody who's a vet, somebody who's kind of been around, somebody who can help guide Penix. That's the biggest and most important thing. I don't see them doing it in the draft. You just don't have the capital to go and invest heavily in the draft. It's got to be done via free agency. And that's kind of where I see them adding two players. You add a Zach Wilson, you add a Joe Flacco. It's not sexy. It's not going to generate a bunch of headlines. It's not going to be something that's going to move the needle, but it provides a solid enough room where you have a guy with a high floor and a guy with still has a ceiling, but is not necessarily going to come in and immediately push Michael Penix, right? Who's going to compete for the job right away. That's kind of just the way that I see it. And again, I mean, we don't have a public timetable for him. This is the closest thing that we have to this point. Keep on going. I'm going to get back to some of these other comments. Thank you for lots of comments, and I appreciate all the comments. Even if I don't agree with them, I appreciate you coming in and speaking up. So I see Keith is pushing back on Jeremy Billy. And again, I mean, I appreciate all of y'all's comments. I do. Barco comes back and says, need Cousins for sure, not Penix. Cousins is not going to be the quarterback of the Falcons. He could come back and re-sign a contract, but he's going to get cut in March. He restructured his contract, and it's going to have a $67 million dead cap hit, or a cap hit next season, and that's fully guaranteed if he is still on this Falcons roster 3 days after the league year starts. It's not going to happen. He's not going to be on this team. Now, if he resigns, fine. That changes everything, right? But I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the case. So we'll see. Keith comes back, and I think Keith is having a conversation with Barco. A little side conversation. Says plenty of college film if you need to review. I've seen plenty of film. I watched the guy play in college. I watched the guy play 9 games here. His first year as a starter. I watched him play three last year. It's not enough of a sample size to have a full, complete process, a product, a full evaluation on who he is as a quarterback. I've thrown a couple out here, Keith. I mean, again, you can go for the high floor guy like a Joe Flacco, go get a Tyrod Taylor, guys who kind of come around and kind of build around him. But Penix is going to be the starting quarterback in 2026. He needs to be the starting quarterback because you need to see what you have in this guy. You need to know because you have to make a decision on him at the end of next season. You have to make a decision. And if you still don't have a sample size and some other guy is starting quarterback for you in 2026, that means you have your answer, and then you're going to be in the quarterback market again next offseason. And that's not a place that the Falcons want to be. They may be there anyway. People might be right. The haters may be right, if you will. And if he's not able to go under center, if he's not able to run this offense, if he's not able to fit this scheme, then you got to move on. You got to figure something else out. Well, you're not there. All right. Yeah, I see these two are going back and forth. I'm not going to engage too deep into this conversation. Floyd says, what's up, Falcons fan? What's up? And we're just talking some Falcons football. We're talking quarterback position. And Jeremy comes back and says, FYI, Penix missing the intangibles. He's got the talent for sure. I don't know how you could possibly say he's missing the intangibles. I don't know how you could possibly say that. Respectfully. Floyd, what's up, my man? What's up? Gregory Bennett says, if you could go back, I think that's an emoji of some kind. I don't know. I can't see it. It's a messed up there. And watch him, especially when the game was on the line. He put the Falcons in position to win so many times in the fourth quarter, to be let down by special teams, and in some cases, the defense. In fact, have that not been, we would be celebrating him as a fourth quarter quarterback. Go back and watch that Washington game from last year. This year, the Tampa game. I was at the Carolina game from last year. He put us in position to win. That's what I like most about him. He plays. It cut off at the end. All right. I appreciate the comment. Yes, I completely agree. I mean, he led the Falcons back on several occasions. The guy put this team in position to win games. He absolutely did. He showed growing pains as well. All right. We got another comment here. A super chat. As always, I always go straight to the super chats. Thank you, Jeremy Billy. No bad blood, just convo with an optimistic timeline. What would you do for quarterback till Penix is ready? And Jeremy, yeah, no, of course, no bad blood whatsoever. I'm just live. I can't go through the commentary and see all the comments. So that's why I just have to skip over it. Yeah, no bad blood. No, not whatsoever. I'm excited. I love you guys having these conversations. That's what we're here for. This is a Falcons community. We want to talk Falcons football with each other. That's what it's all about. And appreciate the question. Appreciate the super chat, my friend. But what would I do till Penix is ready? You got to get a veteran who's going to be able to lead this team through the offseason program. You need to get somebody who's able to lead OTAs. You need a guy who's going to be able to lead the offseason program, building into training camp and then in training camp itself. Because based off of this updated timeline, I'm cautiously optimistic that Penix will be able to play at some point in training camp. At some point. I don't know what his availability will be overall or what he's actually going to be able to do. But if he says he's going to be ready to go by week 1, that means he's probably going to have to practice in some capacity building up to that point. So that's just kind of where it stands right now. Again, this is going to evolve. This is going to evolve from here all the way up to the draft. and many spots in between. This is just the first big timeline that we have. But it's got to be a veteran. It's got to be somebody who's done it before and is able to lead this team or any team. That's kind of my feeling on the matter right now. Keith, he says Penix is in the third phase of rehab. It's only 4. It's a long process. And it's not equal parts, right? These aren't equal parts. These things take a long time, and progress is not always linear. Sometimes you have step backs. Things change quickly. And there's a reason that the injury recovery timeline is generally about 9 months. You have other examples, but ultimately there's a reason why that's the given timeline, is because generally that's how long it's going to take. Even for professional athletes with top of the line care, we still see setbacks and all kinds of things happen. August 9 says, do you think Cousins could be back on a new deal if released? How does that work? I don't trust Penix. He has serious accuracy issues and can't move in the pocket, likely from all those injuries. I don't think the movement in the pocket has anything to do with the injuries. That's first and foremost. Accuracy, yes, he does have accuracy issues. I think that can be honed in on with some good coaching and just progress, And that was my biggest concern about him getting hurt when he did. This is a very important offseason. Any offseason is critical for a player who's in the early years of their first rookie deal, right? Of the rookie deal. And you have to be able to develop and do things in the offseason to show progress in the regular season. And he was missing out on very serious reps and good opportunities for him to develop. That part sucks. And he's going to have to, the learning curve is going to be steep. He's going to have to do a lot of different things in a short period of time with a new coaching staff. And I'm worried about that. But I do think there is a chance that Cousins is re-signed if he's released, but he's going to get cut. I mean, the contract is going to get cut. And I don't think it's going to happen. I think the trust between Cousins and the organization have been fractured, but it's a new general manager. It's a coach that he is, has a history with. And a lot of what I'm basing this on too is just sort of a gut feeling that I had when I listened to Stefanski talk on Tuesday. He was effusive in his praise of Michael Penix. Sounded like he was all in on this guy, thinking that this is a guy that I can win with. This is a guy that I can actually progress and help develop and everything else. He was non-committal, to say the very least, on Kirk Cousins, which tells me that he's just that. He's non-committal, and there's a very high chance that he's just not going to be the guy. I just don't see it happening. I'm going to leave the opportunity. It's still the chances are still there. I'm not gonna believe it until I see it. But no, I understand you don't trust Penix. He's a young quarterback. He's young, but progress happens quickly, and he'll be under the 8 ball for sure. Here we go. David Ferguson, Brandon Sorsby, next franchise quarterback. Dolphins franchise quarterback. Okay. Wishing Brendan Sorsby the best. He's going to have a big season this year. I'm excited to see what he does over at Texas Tech. He's very expensive quarterback, very expensive, but he showed some very serious potential, and he's going to be the 2027 class is going to be very good, right? That's going to be one where you look at these guys when they come out like a year beforehand, and everyone gets all excited, but this just feels like one of those classes that's going to be just a major difference maker. You go back to that 2018 class, the one with Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and it's now Sam Darnold, who's in a Super Bowl now. I mean, they haven't had a lot of success necessarily, but that was probably the most recent dominant class that you could really hang your hat on and say, oh my God, these guys are incredible. But no, I mean, Sorsby is going to be one of those guys. Arch Manning's going to be in this class as well. You're going to have Lenore Sellers and all kinds of guys. It's going to be a jam-packed group. And I'm excited to see that one. And hopefully we're not picking a quarterback, but we'll see. ATL Jet Jones jumps in with a comment here. Do you think Todd McClure will get a job with us? I don't think so. I love the idea. Mud Duck is the man, and he's been effusive in his praise of the hire of Stefanski, and he's smart as a tack. He's in the Ring of Honor, and the dude's tough as nails. I don't know what he's doing. I know he's retired, and I know he watches games and he follows stuff and he posts stuff on social media. But as far as him coaching, just because you're a good player doesn't mean you're a great coach. I know his leadership skills were lauded and praised mightily. But as far as him as a coach, I don't know. Maybe he can come in as an assistant. Maybe he can come in and who knows. But dude's in the Ring of Honor. He played 13 years with the Atlanta Falcons. That's good for something, certainly. But good question. I think that'd be fun. Keith comes back and says, I'm sensitive about the hurt topic because it's been 5 years since his ACL injury on his right leg, and he just had a tear on his left leg. People act like he hasn't been through it before. Yeah, it's the fact that the injury-prone comments are fair. They're fair, and that's just it's a weight that he's going to have to bear throughout his career until he goes through a large enough sample size where he doesn't have a season-ending injury. Because you can talk about the shoulder injuries. You can talk about the 3 ACL injuries. I mean, shoot, it's been pretty consistent that the guy's getting hurt. And it is what it is. It is what it is. And that's just part of just where things line up for him, unfortunately. And until proven otherwise, that's just kind of going to be the spot for him. August says, am I the only one who doesn't get Ian Cunningham interest? Bears haven't done a great job drafting. They took Caleb Williams with the number 1 overall pick. Ben Johnson followed him. Ian Cunningham is one of the hot young commodities in the NFL, right? I mean, he's a really exciting candidate for a lot of different reasons. He's cut his teeth with Ozzie Newsome and with the Ravens, and Howie with the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, he's touched a lot of great organizations. He's connected to the Falcons through Ryan Poles, which, I mean, shoot, it's been one of the most consistent things for the Falcons organization just in general, is that they like the people who they know, right? And that's kind of one of the reasons why I've been more interested in James Lipford. I love his draft stock. And again, I don't know what his DNA is touched. I don't know where his fingerprints are. You know, we don't know who exactly drafted who and who made what decisions, but I know that Lipford had supposedly had a lot of input in the draft, and he had lots of great decisions that were made on guys that he scouted. And I love the idea of getting him. Ian Cunningham is also somebody who's touched a lot of organizations, and he's been he's been in a lot of decision-making properties and had a chance to touch a lot of different things. And I like that idea. I think both candidates are strong. And yeah, they took Caleb Williams, but he was also part of the decision to make that trade in the first place. And then he was on the team that hired Ben Johnson, you know, so you have a guy who's been there and done that. And that's a decision maker ultimately is what you really want in a good general manager, is just an elite decision maker, because they don't have to be the best scout. Howie's not the best scout in Philly. He's just very good at the cap. He's good at manipulating things and planning things and making tough decisions. That's what you need your general manager to be. And Ian Cunningham has shown, from what I have read and what I have heard people say about him, they've said good things. And I'd be good with either one of these two. But that's as good a time as any to kind of jump in on the latest on this search. And we're going to wrap it up here. I got to cut the podcast a little bit shorter today, unfortunately. But according to Albert Breer, the Falcons are zeroing in on their candidates. The 2 candidates, they both had final interviews this afternoon. Lippert was they just announced it maybe 30, 45 minutes ago, right before I went on this podcast. Cunningham a little bit earlier than that. But this is the report from Cunningham. He says, quote, I expect a decision soon on the Falcons open GM job after they interviewed Ian Cunningham on Thursday morning, Texas assistant GM James Lipford on Thursday afternoon, with president of football Matt Ryan and owner Arthur Blank involved in this round. Tells me that a decision's coming soon. It's on the horizon. And I think the chances there are pretty high that it's going to end up being Cunningham. I think that's who it's going to be. But Lipford, again, that's going to be another really interesting one. And I'd imagine they jump right into it. And they're down to the Senior Bowl. They're checking it out with Kevin Stefanski and everything else. So I would imagine a decision here is coming pretty soon. And we could jump in. And I've talked a lot about all these candidates a good bit, but maybe we can jump in and I can answer some more questions when one of those decisions is finally made. But again, yeah, a little shorter of an episode today, but big thank you to all of you for the wonderful comments and the questions and everything else. Remember, Scott and Nick, they'll be back with you on Monday. They've got their podcast that they do every single Monday and Wednesday at 8:30. So keep an eye on that one. If there's content that you want to see this offseason, by the way, not in the live chat, but come into the video after the fact and drop that in there, because I want to hit on some of this content that you really want to see. We're going to get into some more free agency stuff, some biggest draft needs, extensions, stuff like that, because those are going to be the biggest thing that we have coming up. Big thank you to our guys who dropped in super chats. ATL Jet Jones asking about Todd McClure. We had Jeremy Billy talking about the quarterback position and Penix specifically. ATL Jet Jones again with quarterbacks that we could add in free agency. But make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to follow along. Give me a follow at GChapATL if you want to stay up to date on all things Atlanta Falcons on Twitter. And but it's been a lot of fun. Big thank you to all of you guys for jumping in here to the show this evening. Until next time, my name is Garrett Chapman for Falcons on SI. This has been the Falcons Podcast with Garrett Chapman. Until next time, go Falcons.